Welcome to the Tenkara Angler Rod Report. Today we're going to look at the River Peak Kiwami family of rods. All right, so today we're going to look at the Kiwami family of rods from River Peak. It's actually the first time we've done multiple lengths of the same rod on a Tenkara Angler Rod Report, so bear with us, but it's one that I think will be a little bit interesting. While all rods are very similar in construction and characteristics, they are a little bit different, which we'll talk about when we get to the measurables and performance section. So why don't we just kind of dig in and start looking at the three models. The one that I'm holding right now is the River Peak Kiwami 33. It's the smallest model, the shortest model, the one that's intended for, kind of your headwaters and your small stream environments. The next model is the 38, which is a little bit longer, obviously, and a little bit more of, we'll call, an all-purpose rod. And then the last one, which we did an unboxing video on about a month ago, is the 45 Honryu edition. And this one is intended for your bigger waters and mainstream situations. Maybe not necessarily the biggest fish, but definitely bigger water, as it is, almost a 15-foot rod. The characteristics of all three models of Kiwami are relatively similar. I've got the 33 here, and I'm going to kind of walk you through what I noticed when I unboxed the rod and took a look at it for the very first time. I think it's really hard to miss that the carbon fiber blanks of this rod, are definitely a little bit thicker than maybe some of the ones that you're used to seeing. And maybe that's amplified by the fact that if you kind of get a good look, and I'll put a picture up on the screen in case you can't see it really well with the camera, is that this blank has kind of a spiral wrap all the way up and down the rod's blank. River Peak said it's wrapped with carbon thread to create an uneven surface to minimize vibration and oscillation while casting level lines. I'm not sure if that's true or if that's just part of the manufacturing process, but it definitely gives the rod a very different look from a lot of the other Tenkara rods that are out there on the market today. You'll also see that the rod has a very glossy black paint job with very clean River Peak logo and length designation cosmetics. It's a very handsome rod, kind of top to bottom. I like the way it looks. If you're into kind of, very non-flashy Tenkara rods, other than, I guess, the gloss finish, the Kiwamis will, definitely appeal to you. A more interesting aspect of the Kiwami rods is that none of the hardware on them is metal. If you look at the end cap or the butt cap on the grip, you'll actually see that it's wood. It's kind of a curved wood. And when you unscrew it, and I don't think this is necessarily going to show up on the camera really well. There it goes. It fell on my desk. The inside is kind of plastic, as is the threaded junction for you to screw that cap or that plug back in. Additionally, the tip section, the tip plug, is made of all wood, and I'll put a picture of that up on the screen as well. So there's not even that rubberized insert that a lot of the other tip caps have. It's just a wood piece that fits snugly in the top of the rod. Other features that of note is the grip is cylindrical in nature. It doesn't have one of those humped grips that a lot of other Tenkara rods have. Of all the things on this rod, maybe the most controversial part of this rod is the grip. A lot of people really like the 33, but they don't like the way that the grip is in hand. They feel maybe it's a little bit narrow or maybe a little bit short. I don't mind it. I kind of got used to it over time, but I definitely understand that complaint from a lot of other people that have fished this rod, especially if they're used to fishing other Tenkara rods, and this isn't necessarily their first one. If you're going to disassemble this rod, and maybe I'll pull this out right now, you'll note that the Lillian is a little bit short. You probably won't be able to see that on the screen, and that's common throughout all of the River Peak rods. It's not particularly long. It's glued to the end section, the very fine end section. There's no swivel or anything like that, but it can be fully disassembled. It's a clean glue job, so you can fully disassemble all of the parts to, wash off, dry, just get your rod back in shape after using it on the water. Additionally, a little bit of inside information that we were given is that the first 4 sections from the tip on down on all 3 models are identical. So whether you're using the small 33 or the large 45, like I said, the tip sections, the first 4 sections from the tip down are identical. So you're going to get a very, very fine tip on the end of the 45, just like you would on the 33. I guess it also helps you too for parts. If you happen to buy more than one model of this rod, you can actually exchange the first 4 sections if you so choose. I should also add that while I don't have it pulled out right now for this video, that the Kiwamis do not come with a rod tube when you buy them. They do come with a cloth rod sock, which is nice. I don't know if people actually use rod tubes or not. That's kind of debatable, but the rod sock is nice to kind of keep it, covered up when you're going from place to place or to store it over a longer time. While all 3 models of the River Peak Kiwami look generally the same, the measurables are obviously going to be a lot different because you've got rods that range from 330 centimeters all the way up to 450 centimeters. That being said, since River Peak designed these rods to resemble traditional Japanese bamboo Tenkara rods, the actions of all 3 are relatively slow and with generally full flex. So that is one common thread that you'll find throughout all of the measurables, as I mentioned, each one in the following segment. I am going to go through each rod individually, so if that really doesn't interest you and you just want to kind of get the cliff notes at the end, I'll also put up a chart that shows each rod side by side and all their measurables, so you may just want to find that part of the video and hit pause to take all that in. First up, we'll look at the 33, which is a 7-section rod. When fully extended is 329 centimeters or 10.8 feet. When nested, it's 59 centimeters or 23.2 inches. And the cork grip length is 23 centimeters or 9.1 inches. It's actually the same as the 38. The cork grip circumference is 7 centimeters or 2.8 inches. And the weight without the cap is actually the most interesting part to me on this. It's a very light rod at 56 grams or 2.0 ounces. When we get into the advanced, kind of measurables, the common sense score for this rod is 15 pennies, which gives it an RFI of 4.56 and is basically just on the borderline of being a 6.4 or a 5.5, but officially, I guess, based on Tom Davis's RFI chart, would make it a 6.4 moderate mid-flex rod. Moving on to the 38. The 38 is an 8-section rod, which is 373 centimeters or 12.3 feet. It's also, when nested, 59 centimeters or 23.2 inches. It has a cork grip length, as mentioned, which is the same as the 33, at 23 centimeters or 9.1 inches, and a circumference of 7 centimeters or 2.8 inches. The weight without the cap is a little bit heavier, but still really light at 66 grams or 2.3 ounces. And the CCS is 16 pennies, which gives it an RFI of 4.29 and makes it a 5.5 slow full flex rod. Last but not least is the 45, the Honryu edition, and this is a 9-section rod that is 445 centimeters or 14.6 feet. When it's nested, it's a little bit longer than the other 2 rods. It's 65 centimeters or 25.5 inches. The cork grip length is 29 centimeters or 11.5 inches. Again, also a little bit longer than the other 2 models. And the circumference is 8 centimeters around or 3.1 inches. The weight without the cap is 102 grams or 3.6 ounces. And this is a 19 penny rod, which makes it a 4.27 RFI and 5.5 slow full flex model. When you get to rods that are this long, we like to talk about rotational moment, which gives an indication of how heavy the rod is in hand while casting. This rod actually checks in with a 10.4 rotational moment. Any rods start feeling heavy once they have a rotational moment over 6. It's really hard for long rods to get small rotational moment values. So this one at 10.4 is actually quite big. But I would say that when I actually casted this rod, while it was heavier than the other two models, it wasn't extremely heavy in hand. So, kind of do with that number what you will. If the concepts of CCS or RFI are new to you, Tom Davis put together a quick little video on our YouTube channel. I'll put a link to it in the video descriptions so you can kind of learn more about what those measurables mean. With all the measurables covered, let's talk a little bit about performance. I've had the opportunity to fish all 3 models of these rods, and I think my favorite is the 33. The 33 just matches my preferred form of Tenkara fishing in small mountain streams for, trout using unweighted kibari. And it just, the rod sings when you have it in hand in those environments. The one thing that I would say about all these rods, but you notice it in the 33, is that since it is a little bit softer, hook sets are a little bit slower and more difficult or, less intuitive. It's something you have to learn, but once you figure it out, you quickly move past and, really enjoy this rod on the water. As far as its longer brothers, I think the actions of both the 38 and the 45 are very similar. Here's the 38. They're obviously a little bit longer, so they're a little bit slower, and quite honestly, they feel a little bit sloppier than the 33. Not in a bad way, but you do notice it after casting the 33. The 38 is a fun all-purpose rod. I've used it out in the driftless, caught, brown trout with it, and it bends. It bends really, really deep when you get those even medium to small size brown trout on. The 45 is also, quite a bit slower than the other 2 models, although it probably feels a little bit closer to the 38 than it does the 33. And I'll put a little video up of me fishing actually in a backyard pond for bluegill, just to kind of test the casting out. And you'll notice as I'm casting this rod, the deep bend that it has as I'm casting just a 3.0 level line. This rod is super soft, and when I did eventually catch my bluegill, I mean, it bent surprisingly deep. This rod is super sensitive, and it's just a fun one, to fish. I know it's meant for Honryu or mainstream kind of bigger waters and presumably bigger fish. I've seen videos that River Peak's put together of it catching bigger rainbows in Japan. But if you just want to use it for the backyard or whatever, you will have fun with the extra length on this rod. Even though the rotational moment was a little bit high, I didn't feel it heavy, although I only fished it, to be honest with you, for maybe 2 or so hours. Maybe it would feel a little bit heavier in hand if I had fished it for, 4, 5, 6, or a whole day out on the water. We also had the opportunity to get some reviews from some other people that have fished the River Peak Kiwami, and they're posted on our written rod report on tenkaraangler.com. So check it out if you want to see what those folks have to say about the models of Kiwami that they've fished. As of the time of recording, the best place to get your hands on a River Peak Kiwami if you live in North America is through Tenkara Adventure Outfitters. We'll put a link to their Kiwami page in our video description below. They're the exclusive North American distributors of River Peak products, and they offer the 33 all the way up to the 45 in price ranges from $169.99 to $249.99. Another great resource to learn about Kiwami rods is on the River Peak brand page on tenkaraangler.com. We set up a page that has a brand profile about River Peak, lists all of their Tenkara rods, and also references all of the articles on Tenkara Angler that mention River Peak or their products. It's a great place to learn way more about this interesting brand and what they're doing in the Tenkara space. I guess that concludes this Tenkara Angler Rod Report. If you enjoyed this rod report, we'd really appreciate it if you consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. It takes a lot of time and effort for us to test these rods, put together these videos, and write these articles. So by subscribing to our channel, it kind of gives an indication that you really appreciate and like what we're doing, and gives us the motivation to create more content just like this. Well, until the next time, tight lines and good luck on the water. We'll talk to you soon.